Good morning, Irish Coffee fans. For our second ever Irish Coffee morning broadcast, why don't we get you started with U.S. news? First off, it's Benghazi. House Republicans have completed a report on the September 11th, 2012 terror attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi, Libya, following a 2-year probe into the incident. While many expected GOP committee members to try and pin blame on presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at the time, the report does not directly implicate her and instead takes more of a stab at the Obama administration at large, finding that, quote, despite President Obama and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta's clear orders to deploy military assets, nothing was sent to Benghazi and nothing was en route to Libya at the time the last 2 Americans were killed almost 8 hours after the attacks began. This does not mean that Hillary is off clean, however, as leading congressional Republicans are still claiming that Hillary is to blame for the poor response. If you weren't already convinced that our political system was outrageously gridlocked as it is, perhaps the fact that there was partisan divide over fighting the Zika virus might sway your perception. Senate Democrats blocked a federal spending bill yesterday that would have provided over $1 billion in funding to combat the dangerous virus, claiming that Republicans had tried to pork barrel the bill with political motivations. The New York Times reports that, quote, Republicans accused Democrats of manufacturing excuses for blocking the bill, but they did not dispute that some of the provisions favored Republican policy positions. Either way, this tangible, staunch partisanship will have substantial ramifications as southern states forced to deal with the summer outbreak will not have sufficient funds to combat the virus, which, we might add, causes tragic birth defects and permanent brain damage to infants born to mothers carrying the disease. In fact, the first case of Zika-related microcephaly was just reported in Florida, which is giving many cause for concern. Way to go, Washington. In slightly less depressing and frustrating news, NASA has finished testing a booster that will facilitate the world's most powerful rocket launch to date. The Space Launch System, or SLS, will carry astronauts and technological missions to the far reaches of the solar system, kicking off with a trip to none other than Mars. Moving on to world news. Turkish and U.S. officials suspect that ISIS fighters are to blame for yesterday's devastating shootings and bombings at Istanbul's Ataturk airport, which left 36 dead and 147 injured. Reports indicate that there were 3 terrorists involved, 2 of which were in the international terminal, while the other was in the parking lot. All 3 detonated suicide vests after going on a mad shooting rampage. The Turkish president, calling global powers for cooperation, made it abundantly clear that he would not tolerate this cowardice and that whoever was responsible for this bloodshed would certainly pay the price. And while we can joke about the UK's inability to pull out, we certainly can't make light of the drastic increase in rampant racism and xenophobia that has already taken place in the country after voting to depart from the EU last week. Specifically, attacks have been directed at Poles and other Eastern Europeans living within England. Upward of 90 incidents have taken place in the past 3 days, ranging from verbal abuse to outright physical violence that has left many immigrants horribly injured. We predicted the economic hellstorm that would be a Brexit vote, but it would have been impossible to foresee this level of xenophobia in its wake. For election updates, as Trump's campaign's bank statements fall below those of minor senators with only around $1 million on hand, Hillary's team and a group of political allies is reportedly prepared to launch a $13 million television ad campaign in upcoming weeks. Trump, on the other hand, according to reports, has not bought TV advertising since early May. Trump promised supporters yesterday that he would regain American economic independence and free the nation from its trade deals in what he perceives to be the burden of globalization. Anyone with any semblance of fundamental economic knowledge knows that virtually all economists agree that trade is good. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find one that disagrees. It looks like Trump's policy team still has some work to do before November. For your market report, the S&P 500 was up nearly 2% at closing yesterday, showing signs of economic stability following the turmoil that immediately preceded the Brexit vote. The British pound, however, remains at 1.33 to the dollar, a low that has not been reached in over 3 decades. In sports news, Pat Summitt, who was the winningest coach in the history of major college basketball, male and female, died yesterday at the age of 64. Just 5 years after she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Last but not least, moving on to culture. China has officially banned Lady Gaga from entering the mainland after she met with the Dalai Lama to chat about yoga, of all things. Thank you for listening to Irish Coffee. We hope you enjoyed your morning news with a twist. We'll talk to you soon.